Thanks for joining us for Profile. I'm Ian Boyne, your host. We have another story of inspiration. It comes from the life of Kenneth Russell. We've featured a number of persons from the inner cities. Well, today we feature someone who came from rural poverty, from the area of Pedro in St. Anne. He lost his father when he was only 7. He had 7 siblings. His mother was pregnant with her last child. It was difficult for him growing up in that poor rural community. He failed the common entrance twice and was only rescued and given an opportunity to go to Fern Court by a teacher who thought that he had potential. Well, it was a good thing that she made that initiative. She took that initiative, and which resulted in his going to Fern Court High School, because eventually he went to Howard University, where he got a first degree, graduating summa cum laude in journalism, and then went to the prestigious Harvard University. He has much to tell us about the importance of vision, the importance of dreaming, and very importantly, the importance of hard work and strategizing. We thank you for having joined us. Kenneth, good to have you.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
On Profile. We delight in telling stories like yours, stories of the overcoming of adversities and the surmounting of difficulties. Let's go back to Pedro in Clarendon. What was life like?
Oh, Pedro is rural, deep rural. It's on the border with Clarendon, and it means getting up in the mornings and taking care of the chicken and taking care of the pigs and running to the river to catch a shower because you don't have the luxury of the pipe in the home and all of that. Yes. It means carrying water from the spring, our spring, and it's still a very active spring, bongrong we call it, burnt ground in English for you, yes. And the whole idea though, that's rural life. Yes, and we would do these things. These are everyday experiences for us. Yeah, natural things. You call it poverty, and I don't even know if we knew we were poor, because it was our experiences, how we lived.
And this was how all the people around you lived?
Yes.
So there was nothing unusual for your family? Yes.
No, except with the exception of having lost my father. Most of the households would, because he died pretty young, he was just 39. So most of the households would still have had their adult male. So if there was an exception, that might have been it. Yes. Also, our household was pretty big, even by Pedro's standards, because in total there were 9 of us. Eventually, 9 of us. So those were, I guess, exceptions. But in terms of the things that everybody did, you know, the work, the carrying the water, the working on the farm, working in the cane piece, and all of that.
How did your father's death affect the family economically? Because while things were rough before, they would have been worsened by his death. Significantly,
because you know, he was the breadwinner, the sole breadwinner. My mother used to help out, but she was primarily a housewife, taking care of the children. So with him gone, everything changed. It meant my mother knew how to father. She had to spend more time on the farm. Those of us who probably didn't go to the farm as much now had to start going at younger, more tender working at that young age. So it was rural life. It was, you know, all the things I've listed. As I said, the struggles, we see them now as struggles, I think. In the moment, there were, you know, the experience which everybody was having. You know.
You feel the common entrance. I mean, I guess that a lot of hopes were pinned to your success, but you never got through. How did that affect you and the family?
We were disappointed. I think I was always seen as bright, and even I was convinced that I was bright. But once failed, and I guess we thought, all right, next time around.
Next time we'll succeed.
Twice failed. So everybody now became, you know, I think for me anyway, I started to question, in a way, whether or not I was as bright as I thought and whether I was as bright as people thought. But the teacher, Miss Hay, she knew better. And she took the scores, she went to Fern Court, and she said to the principal, see a young man here, you know, he have potential, give him a shot. Because
people's strategic interventions really make a difference. Had that teacher not been there to make that intervention at Fern Court?
Yes. it would have been a different...
Yeah, what would have happened to you?
Well, that woman, I can safely say, saved my life.
Yes.
I might have continued to live, but my experiences, I think, would have been totally different. She came, more importantly, she saw in me something that people were now beginning to question, because everybody saw it. Yes. But after failing 2 times, they begin to question.
Yes, yes. And you yourself had begun to question your own
yes.
abilities.
But, you know, I think even if she didn't succeed in getting me to front court, just the importance of somebody believing that even after failing twice, this young man still has it. I think that would have probably helped to shape me. You know, so if she wasn't there at that point and made that intervention, took a stance and says, let me take this boy to front court and see what can be done, it would have been a different story.
Yes. At front court, did you do spectacularly well?
I would say no. I don't think I performed, certainly when it came to CXCs. I didn't do what I thought I could do.
You didn't get any 7 CXCs?
Well, 7 at 2 tries. My first try, I got 3.
You got only 3?
I only got 3, and my mother said, you're going back. You're going to take a year over, you're going back. So I had to go back because, you know, she had a point in that with 3 subjects, you know, there wouldn't be much I could do. Yes. So she sent me back. I was still pretty young. I was 16 plus. So she sent me back for an extra year. You know, there's a certain amount of humiliation that goes with that. You know,
it doesn't read like the normal academic profile of someone who ends up at Harvard, the maker of American intellectual life. So our discussion here gives hope to a lot of people. It tells the story that there are late learners or people who can come from behind.
Yeah, well, I think also it tells you you have to continue to believing in you and continue to strive and continue to work hard. Because if I had stopped after the 3 subjects, or if I hadn't gotten into front court, or even after the 7 subjects, because there were no serious questions about whether, you know, he still has it, you know, and I think those were lessons that I had to take with me. And I think people have to understand that as they go through life and as they come upon these things, even if it doesn't happen at that moment, you know, continue to press on, continue to try, because it could be at your next try. It could
failure is final.
No. Failure, there's a lesson. It's final if you fail to see the lesson. You know, that is real failure, when you fail to see the lesson in what has happened to you. And for me, certainly, that is something I've taken with me throughout life. Because when something happens to me, I want to see the lesson learned in that. And then try to take that on and use that to make me a better person. Because without that, then failure would have just been, you know, wasted.
So you turn your lemons into lemonade.
Yes. That's a good way of putting
it. What people see as obstacles, you see as opportunities. You always try to snatch that victory from the jaws.
See the silver lining in the things that happen to you.
What happened after front court?
Well, after front court, I taught as a pre-trained teacher. Taught at Fort George Primary. I was reading this book, Agatha Christie, The ABC Murders, and one morning I get up, put on my clothes, and I had the book in my hand, and I was walking through the door, and a bookmarker I had fell out of the book. The bookmarker says, I will open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing. Yes. I read the thing many times before, but suddenly it meant something to me. So I'm going to Kingston, right? I'm going to go see my aunt, who was on Orange Street at the time. And I got to 3 miles at the time. It was not Portia Simpson Miller Square, it was 3 miles. So I got to 3 miles, the bus stopped, and I thought...
Hey, let's pick up the story. Tell us what happens after the bus stopped at 3 miles. Kenneth Russell telling us his story, how he came from rural poverty, ended up at Harvard University, to which he will return this September for his doctorate. You're watching Profile. We're going to be back after this short break.